What's up guys, my name is Ace, and last week one of the aftermarket parts they added to Modern Warfare 3 was the JAK Harbinger kit for the M4. So in today's video, we're going to be doing a deep dive into this kit to see exactly what it changes, and toward the end, I'm going to share a couple really nice class setups to use with this. And let's just dive right into this with our damage profile, which is totally different from the base M4. With this, we deal a massive amount of damage at 100 up close, and then at longer ranges to the body, it'll drop down to 70. So this is going to be a 2 to 3 shot kill. And just a little note here, you might notice in the advanced stats, it says you deal 101 damage to the torso, but 100 damage to the legs. This is true in the maximum damage range, but beyond that, these values are identical based on my testing. And realistically, that one extra damage that you deal to the torso up close doesn't actually change anything, so it's easiest to just look at it this way. As for headshots, we don't get a crazy headshot multiplier, so no one-shot kill to the head. And what this means is the only time headshots are actually going to make a difference with this gun is in the minimum damage range. If you land both shots to the head, you can still maintain a 2-shot kill. Outside of that, just aim for the body. It's going to be very consistent with its 2-shot kill potential. Now, in exchange for that massive increase to our damage, we do see a very significantly slower rate of fire at 246 rounds per minute. This is extremely slow for a full auto. And what this means for our time to kill potential is with that 2-shot kill, we're capable of killing in just 244 milliseconds, which is a highly competitive time to kill, but this is a very unforgiving gun. The moment you miss one bullet and require that third shot to kill, your time to kill will spike all the way up to 488 milliseconds, which is very slow. So definitely high risk, high reward when it comes to this. Next, let's have a look at our ranges, and as we can see here, our guaranteed 2-shot kill anywhere in the body will extend out to 45.7 meters, which is very, very good. And then beyond that, it is going to be a 3-shot kill. Also, it is worth noting our bullet velocity doesn't change with this kit. It's the exact same as the base M4 at 720 meters per second, which is honestly not bad at all. As for hardcore game modes, it's no surprise whatsoever that this is going to be a guaranteed 1-shot kill at all ranges, anywhere in the body. Now, let's move on to another downside with this gun, and this is its recoil. As we can see here, there is quite a bit of recoil between each of these shots that you fire, and our total magnitude of recoil when just firing 15 rounds compared to 30 rounds of the base M4, this is significantly higher, so there's quite a bit of a gap between those shots, and this is something that's definitely going to hold this gun back at longer ranges. Typically, if you are handling a long-range gunfight, you're going to have to tap fire, which then slows down your time to kill potential quite drastically. In addition to this recoil not being so great by default, we're also extremely limited in attachments, because not only is this on a Modern Warfare 2 gun, so the stocks and the barrels tend to be horrible for recoil control, or if you do get decent recoil control out of them, you completely destroy many of your other stats, but then on top of that, they actually block off some of the key attachment slots, most notably the muzzle attachments, and this is where we tend to get the best possible recoil control with a single attachment. So not only is this recoil not so good by default, it's also really difficult to get this under control with attachments. In either case, let's move on to our handling stats, and this is an area where this kit will definitely struggle as well. Our aim down sight time is 320 milliseconds, which is quite slow for a base gun. Also, our sprint to fire time is slowed down from the base up to 231 milliseconds. So it's not going to be your best bet for being highly aggressive. However, at least one nice thing here is our reload add time is not so bad at 1.55 seconds, keeping in mind we are limited to a 15-round mag though. Next, some other stats that are harmed quite a bit when using this kit are our mobility stats. Our base movement speed is just 4.2 meters per second. This is extremely slow for an assault rifle. This is actually even slower than most of the LMGs in the game. Same thing with our sprint speed. This is tied with the slowest LMG in the game at 4.9 meters per second. And then finally, our aim walking speed is 2.5 meters per second, which is also not good at all for an assault rifle, although not quite as bad as most LMGs at least. So it's pretty clear with the handling and mobility stats that this isn't the type of gun that's designed for rushing around like a madman, and normally this covers it for the base stats. However, there is one other key stat I wanted to talk about here, and this is our flinch resistance, because using this kit will actually harm our flinch resistance. With the base M4, our flinch resistance value is 0.17 newtons, whereas with the JAK Harbinger kit, it increases up to 0.25 newtons. So what this means is when you get shot, you will have a higher chance of being flinched off targets, and as a result, I would recommend either looking at attachments that could reduce this, there are some rear grips that help in this area, or alternatively, you could use marksman gloves that will also cut down on the flinch that you experience. And there we go, that's finally going to wrap it up for all of the base stats that changed with the JAK Harbinger kit on the M4. Now, let's get into a couple excellent attachment combinations I put together, keeping in mind we are quite limited, like I showed you guys earlier, in the attachments that we're able to use. So the first setup I wanted to share for you guys is just a nice balanced build that you can create with this. And with this one, we're using the SL Skeletal Vertical Underbarrel to help a little bit with that vertical recoil, but also to help with handling, because that is quite important with this gun. It has really bad base handling. We're also using the Schlager Peckbox 4 to help a bit with our aim down sight speed. We have the JAK Glassless Optic to help a little bit with firing aim stability. That's quite helpful on this gun. And then finally, outside of the kit itself, we've got the second ZX grip, which is going to help with recoil without much of a downside attached to it. And with this combination, we get a reasonable aim down sight speed at 293 milliseconds. This still isn't really fast by any means, it's just reasonable, like I said. And it's a similar thing with our sprint out time. We are slightly improving it compared to just the kit itself, but it's still going to be worse than most of the assault rifles out there. And I managed to improve both of these values while also improving our recoil by a noticeable margin. Now, this is still a fair amount of recoil. There's still a pretty big gap between those bullets. And as a result, if you find yourself at longer ranges, I would either recommend not taking that gunfight or trying to tap fire against the enemy player. So treat it kind of like a semi-auto, even though you're still in full auto mode. But generally speaking, I have managed to find at least a little bit of success with this, and it can be an enjoyable gun to use if you're confident in your aim. It's still going to be very unforgiving though. And one thing I want to point out with this is you technically can make a more accurate build out of this, but in doing so, you're going to have some horrible handling stats, so you're going to be useless at moving around the map at all. So that's why I like this particular build. It's a bit more on the balanced side, so it allows you to get around the map better while also getting noticeably better accuracy. So there we go, that's the first one. Next, I was actually quite surprised to find that tac stance isn't completely horrible on this gun, despite the fact that we can't get the tightest tac stance spread with this. So with the build that I'm using, we've got the 1mW laser box, the Broom Bastion angled grip, the Torrent Span 9 stock, and then finally the Sakin ZX grip. And with this one, our tac stance spread is 2.8 degrees, which typically wouldn't be ideal for a tac stance build. And I will say it's not ideal. You're not picking people off across the map with this. But as long as you're keeping yourself at reasonably close to medium ranges, I actually find I'm able to hit my shots reasonably consistently. And with the slow rate of fire, I find that tac stance spread doesn't increase too much as you continue to fire like it does with some guns. And then the final thing this has going for it is the fact that we deal the same amount of damage anywhere in the body, or at least effectively the same amount of damage. So it doesn't matter if some of our shots are inaccurate and hit them in the lower torso compared to upper torso, it's going to kill them in those two shots all the same. So with this build, our aim down sight time is horrible, but that's okay because we're just using tac stance, and you can get sort of aim down sight with tac stance noticeably faster than our full aim down sight speed. Our sprint out time unfortunately isn't improved, and this is an area where you could swap out the Sakin ZX grip for one of the grips that help with your sprint out time. But for me, I actually like the Sakin ZX for recoil control because recoil still matters to a degree when you're in tac stance. And then finally, it's worth mentioning our hipfire spreads are not that bad as well. If you end up in a really close quarter situation, you don't need to use tac stance, you can just hipfire them. And there we go, that's finally gonna wrap it up for today's breakdown on the JAK Harbinger kit for the M4. As for my thoughts overall on this kit, I really like the addition of this. I feel like there's not much in the game that's quite like this. Sure, there are some battle rifles or marksman rifles that you could argue are somewhat comparable, but there's nothing that hits quite as hard as this does, quite as consistently as well. And while it's obviously not going to be the most versatile or like top tier meta gun out there, I do find it enjoyable to use because it is a high risk, high reward gun, and there's just nothing else quite like it in the game. Now, of course, these are just my opinions, and I'd love to hear from you guys in those comments down below. How are you feeling about this 50 caliber kit on the M4? Are you guys generally enjoying it or not so much? If you enjoyed this video, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.